Hi, I'm David Barber. This is the Music Biz for rockoncolorado.com. This video podcast is called What to Do If You Think You're Being Ripped Off by a Venue, revised. Okay, so you just played a show, you go to settle up with the manager or whoever, and he gives you a whole lot less money than you're expecting. What do? First off, I can speak from very real experience and tell you, chances are there's a miscommunication. I mean, there are some venues and promoters that you got to be careful of who are going to rip you off. But if you're working with a venue that does music and they've been doing it for a long time, they don't want to rip you off. So it's probably just a miscommunication. Okay? These things happen. Now, first thing, just be calm. Don't get upset about it. Don't get excited. Worst case scenario, you can take more action tomorrow or days down the road or after you talk to a lawyer or something like that. Okay? So first thing to do is you want to gather the facts. Who did the booking on the band's part and who did it on the venue's part? Okay? Because those are the only, unless you've got a written contract, those are the only people who really know what was agreed to in the first place. 9 times out of 10, it's a misunderstanding on what the agreement was in the first place. Okay? Sometimes, the venue will say, hey, we'll give you $500 if you bring in 100 people. And, the booking guy says, great. And then he tells the band, we're going to get $500. And just, with his fingers crossed, hoping they're going to get 100 people. Well, the night of the show comes in, and maybe it snows like a mother and only 50 people show up and they only want to give you $100, $150. Well, you got to know the facts, okay? So first, you got a written contract, and if so, is it available? If so, bring it. Always bring that kind of stuff to the gig. Next, you want to know, how did it go? Did it look like there was a good crowd? And are you sure those people showed up for you versus showed up for one of the other bands that was playing? Were there other bands playing? Every show's a little different. Every venue's a little different. But you got to try to collect that information. Were you the opening act? Were you the headliner? Is this a crappy little dive in the middle of nowhere that you're just passing through town and you're probably never going to be there again? Or a bread and butter venue that you've played 100 times and you want to play 100 more? Different situations, obviously. Now, who are you dealing with? Are you dealing with the person on the venue side that did the booking? Or are you dealing with a door guy or a bartender or a night manager who has no idea? Sometimes there's a regular formula for paying bands, and if your band happens to have a different agreement than that, this guy or girl might not know. Also, the thing to think about is, are you drunk? Do not go and try to deal with this if you're hammered, because then you might be emotional, you might not be thinking straight. Find somebody who's sober at least to go with you or something, okay? Find somebody sober, or just say, okay, we'll take what we got and try to sort it out tomorrow. Once you've got your facts together, you want to communicate, okay? Go, hey, look, I understood the deal was we were supposed to get $500, and see what they have to say. A lot of venues have a lot of different things. They may say, well, yeah, it was $500, but we had to take out, a certain amount for the sound guy and the light guy and the security, or the $200 of beer you guys drank, or something like that. If you're not aware of those things, you're going to find out. And honestly, these people don't mind if you ask, because they do this all the time. They're not, don't be afraid to ask, okay? You may not necessarily like what they say. The answer could be as unsatisfying as, well, that's what my boss told me to give you. In which case, you want to sort it out later. What you don't want to do is blow up and get angry and threaten people and stuff like that. Go, look, you know what? We'll sort it out tomorrow or whenever, and do that. Okay? Because if you get in a fight or something like that, you're more likely to end up in jail than you are getting your $500. Okay? And in the light of day, the next day, you know, maybe you talk to the guy on your side and he'll tell you, oh yeah, it was $500 if we bring in 100 people. You know, and it doesn't hurt to ask, well, what were the numbers and how do we know that they're accurate? You know, don't accuse anybody of lying unless you've got a really good reason to think that they're lying. There are scam artists and slime bag music industry people out there, but most of them are not. Most of them, they don't want the bands to be pissed off. They want you guys to be happy. They want you to get paid what was agreed on ahead of time. And everybody walks away happy, right? Usually it's a misunderstanding. If it's not, the next question is, you know, the next day, what do you do? Well, first off, wait a day or two, call them up and say, hey, look, I think this went wrong. Can you look into it? Because chances are the guy who does the booking at the venue wasn't necessarily the one who paid you at the end of the night. I mean, sometimes it is, sometimes it isn't. If it's not, and even if it is, call them up and say, look, I just don't think this was right. What can we do to straighten it out? Maybe he'll go back and look at the numbers. If you've got anything in writing, you need to show that. You know, certainly if you've got a written contract that's signed and all that, or even just an email agreement where, hey, look, here's where you said, okay, yeah, sure, cool, to what we said. That's a contract. If you've got that, you got a pretty good leg to stand on. But, you know, be aware. If you insist on your $500 guarantee, but only 20, 30 people came to see you, the venue's going to now losing money on you. And they're not going to want to book you back. If you go, well, look, okay, yeah, it was only 20, 30 people or whatever, give me $3, $4 a head, something like that, something reasonable to where they're not losing their ass by having you come play, they're more likely to book you back again. If you insist on your $500, even though, you know, maybe it snowed 2 feet that day and nobody came, they're probably not going to want to work with you again. All right? You want to take those things into consideration, and that's why sometimes it's best to wait until the next day. Sometimes things get ugly. Maybe it's a promoter, an independent promoter, and the show went bad, and he basically lost his ass, and he doesn't have money to pay you. What do you do then? Well, first you should try talking to him at the end of the night if he hasn't skipped out, and then try calling him if he'll answer his phone or his email or whatever. If he's avoiding you, that's not a good sign. If worse comes to worse and it's a significant amount of money, you know, sometimes you just got to chalk it up and say, look, we lost money on that one, we're not going to get paid, fuck, oh well, what are you going to do? Chalk it up to a learning experience and never do a gig for that person or venue again. Sometimes you got to do that. Other times it might be worth your effort to talk to an attorney. Have your attorney write them a letter. That letter will state, look, we have an agreement, we had a contract, you agreed to pay us this amount, we played, good crowd showed up, you didn't pay us, pay up or we're going to sue you. Right there, most promoters or venues, if they've got the money, will just pay you because it's cheaper than going to court, cheaper than them hiring an attorney, but bear in mind, they're probably not going to book you again. If he's a fly-by-night or slime bag promoter, well, you don't want to work for him anyway, do you? If you'd like to read some real-life stories about bands who did these things wrong, I mean way wrong, I got some great stories on there. Go to rockoncolorado.com, click on The Music Biz. Thank you.